My name is Lance Armstrong, and I am the chairman, the convener of the Diocesan Addictions Recovery Ministry Commission. Although we've been in existence since 1984, I sometimes feel like we're one of the best-kept secrets in the diocese. I want to thank Bishop Thompson for his support, Bishop Jenkins, and especially Bishop Brown, who was one of the ones who helped this organization get started. If you have a chance to look at the ministry cross later, you will see Bishop Brown as part of the iconography of this ministry. This ministry welcomes recovering people into the Episcopal community and also helps recovering Episcopalians find a home within the organized church. Within the diocese, the Addictions Recovery Ministry provides education, guidance, and support for families and parishes struggling with or wishing to learn more about addiction and recovery. And in this context, the term addiction means any behavior or substance that interferes with healthy functioning. This can be including but not limited to alcohol and drugs, but also relationships, sex, works, the internet, any number of things we can get addicted to. So I want to ask you some questions this afternoon. You don't have to raise your hands, but how many of you know someone who has struggled with an addiction? Family, friend, coworker? I think most of us can raise our hands to that question. Now, here's another question. What does an alcoholic or an addict look like? Do you still have that image of the alcoholic as the guy in the dirty trench coat, living under the bridge, eating out of the dumpster, drinking out of the brown paper bag? I know that I used to, but today, the alcoholic, the addict, looks like your banker, your doctor, your lawyer, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, or a father, a wife, a son, a daughter, or even a priest. And the statistics tell us that almost 10% of the people in our country today have a problem with drugs or alcohol. Think about that. If your average Sunday attendance is 10 people, the odds are pretty good that one of your members has a problem. There is 10% of our community that are struggling in isolation, that need healing, that need reconciliation, that need us to reach out to them, to bring them back to God's love and grace and reconciliation. The truth is, the alcoholic looks like me, and I'm not supposed to be an alcoholic. You know, my parents were not alcoholics. I was not an abused child. I did not come from a broken home. I had a roof over my head, clothes on my back, food on the table, but I was a fifth-a-night alcoholic. I did well in school. I was a valedictorian in my high school, national merit finalist, top 100 scholar. I graduated LSU, got a good job, married a beautiful woman, bought a home. On the outside, everything looked great. I was active in church. I was a senior warden at St. Albans, and I was in church almost every Sunday. But I was kneeling there, hungover, shaking, sick, and totally isolated, even though I was surrounded by people that knew me and cared about me. I did not know how to escape the trap of addiction. I did not know how to ask for help. And it was a topic that was never discussed. And one of the biggest hurdles that I had to overcome to get sober was my own preconceptions. You know, I said to myself, I may drink a fifth a night, but I've got a job, I've got a family, I've got a car, I've got a home. I can't be an alcoholic. I'm different, you just don't understand. But I had to hit a bottom. I had to reach a point where my alcoholism put me in the hospital for 4 days. I get out, go home, The next morning, I get up, get dressed, and go to the liquor store. This is insane. This is where the disease of addiction takes us. And it scared me enough that I finally asked for help. Recovery truly is a life and death decision. I learned that addiction is a fatal disease. It is never cured, it is only in remission. And once I admitted that I'm an alcoholic, I was only left with 3 choices: sobered up, locked up, or covered up. If I had not stopped drinking, I would probably be dead now. And for me, that first step in recovery became, I'm powerless over alcohol, my life is unmanageable, and I don't want to die that way. That is what I had to reach in order to become sober. I'm standing here alive and sober today purely by God's grace. I was born and raised in Baton Rouge, but I got sober in Raleigh, North Carolina in 1994. And in 1999, I moved back to Baton Rouge and rejoined St. Albans. And there's always 2 people that I want to know that I'm in recovery: my doctor and my priest. So I was talking with Father Patrick Smith, and he said, "Oh, I just got this packet from the Addictions Recovery Ministry. Why don't you represent St. Albans on that?" Well, I've been involved ever since, and it has truly enriched my life. So my next question is, what is addiction? It is not just drugs or alcohol. An addiction is any substance or behavior that we place ahead of God. And any of us can be addicted to something. It can be work, money, sex, internet, Facebook, gambling. There are so many things that can consume our lives. And in that sense, all of us struggle with addictions, the place where we want to do things our way and not God's way. One of the most important points I can make is that addiction is a spiritual disease, just as we all face that spiritual struggle with temptation and sin. It's not a matter of willpower. It's not a matter of character, moral fiber, or lifestyle choice. And we have learned that the best solution for this spiritual disease is a spiritual solution. This is one of the reasons that the church is in a unique position to help alcoholics and addicts. There is no conflict between the 12 steps of recovery and the precepts of our church. A good recovery program and a good religious program go hand in glove. Each can strengthen the other. And during the convention, you will hear how embracing people in the recovery community has impacted St. Albans at LSU. You will hear about how embracing recovery spirituality has impacted the congregation at Trinity in New Orleans. The recovery ministry walks that line between secular recovery and our Christian faith. For over 30 years, this ministry has done 2 annual recovery retreats, one for women and one for men and women who are in or just interested in recovery. We usually fill up the Solomon Episcopal Conference Center. We have also helped individuals and families in the diocese who are struggling with addiction and help them find the resources that they need. In addition, we've been involved with assisting Recovery Sunday programs in a handful of parishes. And truly, I have never participated in one of those events where I did not have people come up to me after the service to share their personal or family experience with addiction. This disease does not just impact the alcoholic or the addict. It infects the entire family system. And tomorrow you will hear the experience of someone who was a child of an alcoholic. Many people who are dealing with the problem would never think of going to a 12-step meeting or talking to their doctor about it. There is too much denial, there is too much stigma about it. But sometimes a friend or a speaker at church might open the door for someone to say, I have a problem. I need some help. Now, most of us in the recovery ministry are not medical professionals, but we can put you in touch with them. Most of us are not associated with recovery centers, but we know the people who are. We're familiar with the many 12-step recovery programs around the diocese. We're willing to share our experience, strength, and hope. And it is all done privately and confidentially. Tomorrow you will hear from one of our members about his outreach with the Bridge House Recovery Home in New Orleans. Members of this ministry are volunteers who see the growing problem in our community and our nation, and we just want to help. The only requirement is a heart for service. You do not have to be in recovery, and you don't have to have any prior experience with addiction. You may feel you don't understand addicts. You may feel since you don't have the problem, you can't relate or you can't help. But what I want to tell you is you don't need to understand or identify with my alcoholism. You can identify with me on the level that we all struggle with. Sin due to weakness of the flesh. It is a spiritual struggle we all face, and you can share the message of hope and faith in the path of a spiritual life, regardless of your personal experience with addiction or your lack thereof. Now, membership in the recovery ministry is not published, whether you're in recovery or not. There are some of us who, like myself, have decided to publicly discuss our addiction and recovery, but we respect the anonymity of anyone in recovery who does wish to serve on the commission. And make no mistake, there is still a huge stigma with publicly admitting an addiction. I have many friends who are faithful Episcopalians in recovery, but they do not say anything because of the fear of the negative impact it can have on their careers or their social relationships. It was just within the past few years, my wife Linda was going to one of her Bible studies, long-established group, and it was appropriate for her to say during one of their meetings, oh yes, my husband is in recovery. And one of the well-educated, faithful, long-term members of the group said, and I always thought he was such a nice person. Well, I am, and most of us are, but the stigma and the misconceptions involved with addiction remain strong. And when you leave here today, I ask you to think about how addiction may be affecting people in your lives. I ask you to consider how you respond to them and what your own prejudices might be regarding the stigma of addiction. There is a growing awareness of the problems related to addiction in our society. It has even become a topic in the presidential debates for those of you who suffered through them. There is also a recognition that it's not just alcohol and illegal drugs that are involved. Prescription drug abuse has become a national epidemic. Opioid overdoses are overwhelming our coroners' offices. And the people I see coming to their first 12-step meetings are getting younger and younger. During the convention, you will hear how Episcopal High is addressing these problems in the school. Our children, our grandchildren are at risk, and we need to be aware and informed in order to respond properly. At the last General Convention, the National Church acknowledged this problem and passed 3 related resolutions. I'm not going to try to go through all of those, but I would like to commend them to you and ask you to look at them when you have a chance, especially Resolution A158. It provides a 13-point guideline for parishes to use in reassessing and updating their own policies on the use of alcohol in the parish. Resolution A159 addresses the role of the church in a culture of alcohol and drug abuse, And Resolution D14 requires that all candidates for ordination be questioned directly on issues regarding substance use in their lives and their family systems. Big steps forward for the church on a national level that we need to look at, be aware of, and embrace in our own parishes. And it's our hope that during this convention, you will take the opportunity to learn more about addiction and recovery. I want to invite you to visit the ministries table in the exhibitors area. There are also a number of ministry members attending the convention who are available to talk with you, including our chaplain, Mother Dee Dee Estes, Deacon Jay Albert, and Chris Martin, myself. This afternoon, following the plenary session adjournment, members of this ministry are just going to have an open roundtable workshop. Anyone who wants to come in and ask questions about addiction and recovery, anything about our ministry, are welcome to just drop by. People will be there for that. And if anyone is interested, following that, Bishop Thompson will celebrate the Eucharist that incorporates the 12 steps. And Bishop Porter Taylor, our guest this weekend, will preach. He has been involved with the recovery community for many, many years and will be here to speak as our keynote speaker in the morning. For anyone interested in what goes on at a 12-step recovery meeting, it's not a cult, I promise you. There will be a brief open meeting at the same time social starts this evening. If you want to just stop by and observe or participate, everyone is welcome to do that. Saturday morning program will begin with a morning prayer that also incorporates the 12 steps. I want to thank Greg Tanner and Kim Richard, who have been musicians for our ministry at our retreats for well over 20 years now, for assisting with the music for the Eucharist tonight and the morning prayer in the morning. And one of the goals of this convention that Bishop Thompson mentioned is it's our hope that every parish will have a representative on the Addictions Recovery Ministry Commission. The commission will hold its next meeting next Saturday at the cathedral at 10 a.m. And I want to invite all of you to consider having someone from your parish come to that meeting. And if you're interested and unable to attend, please see me or any of the people that I mentioned. Come by the ministry table and let us know. We'll add you to our contact list and we will be in touch with you. But in closing, the message that I want to leave you with today is that there's a serious problem in our communities that affects those people who are alienated and isolated, in need of our love and reconciliation. And the church has a role in the spiritual solution to this problem. And most importantly, you can help spread the message of hope through God's redeeming love and grace. Thank you, Bishop Thompson, and thank you.